Welcome back to the Matt Report podcast. Today's guest is Sebastiaan Vanderlens of WordProof.io. If you've ever thought about intersecting blockchain technology with WordPress, journalism, writing, time-stamping your posts or content on the blockchain, this is definitely the episode for you. And the episode for you also, if you're a startup, you're pitching, you're marketing, there's a lot in this episode. Going down as one of my favorite episodes, definitely of 2020, if not in the last few years here. I really hope you get a lot out of this, or, at the very least, you've learned about blockchain, the technology, and Sebastiaan and team's mission to make this technology available to all and the benefits to all. Recently winning €1 million in a tech startup competition. Great story, great background, phenomenal guest. I hope you do check out WordProof. I am, once I get some time on my agenda, I'm going to implement it on Matt Report. Wouldn't it be nice to timestamp podcasts? I just thought of that. I don't know why I didn't ask during the show. Really hope you enjoy. Don't forget to leave us a 5-star review on iTunes, mattreport.com/subscribe. Join that mailing list. Let's say thanks to today's sponsors, SearchWP, Jonathan Christopher and team at SearchWP, sponsoring today's episode. Look, if you need to make a better search for WordPress, and if there's one thing WordPress can do better, especially for large sites, especially for sites like we're talking about today, journalism, content, lots of content, SearchWP makes that a breeze, makes your search in WordPress a whole heck of a lot better. At searchwp.com, WordPress search ignores content. SearchWP finds it. It finds things like e-commerce related products. It finds things like custom field content, custom database tables, PDF, and documents that are stored in your WordPress media gallery. It's doing all kinds of things. It does all these things, but the best part about it is the analytics, the search analytics that it reports to you on the dashboard. You can make better decisions for what people are searching for on your site. SearchWP.com, check it out. Starts at a low price of $99 for one site, and if you're building out complex sites, that's nothing. SearchWP.com, thanks for sponsoring the show. Second sponsor of the show is GravityView. You can find GravityView at GravityView.co. I said this in the last time I read this. If anything, go there just to watch Zach's music video. It's not him. It's not Zach starring. Although I do think, now that this video is a little bit older, Zach should do one of himself. Come up with a new one. GravityView.co, a page builder using GravityForms data. So look, you get all this data that you're collecting in GravityForms. And if you're a power user like me, right, like a WordPress implementer, you know how to do a lot of good things, a lot of powerful things with WordPress. One of them being GravityForms. You're intaking user registration, user-driven content, but how do you get it out of the database? Display it onto your website. Maybe you want to display a list view, a table view, a Google Maps view. You're making like a very lean, precise directory of sorts, like a real estate site, or a directory of entrepreneurs in your neck of the woods. GravityView can help you query that content inside of GravityForms data, display it on your WordPress website without a lick of code. GravityView.co, check it out. Thank them for sponsoring the show. You can get it right now, currently on sale, 20% off for $55 for up to 3 websites. I thought that was 1. That was 3. What's 55 divided by 3? I don't know what it is. It's cheap. That's what I know. GravityView.co. GravityView.co. Thanks for sponsoring the show. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Matt Report podcast, season 9. We're halfway through the year, if you can believe it or not. Actually, we can believe it. My God, can we get 2020 over with by now? Oh, it's been a rough ride, but not for all of us. Not for today's guest. Sebastiaan Vanderlens of WordProof joins the program today. Sebastiaan, welcome to the program.
Hey, Matt. Thanks for having me on.
2020 is not the banner year, but recent news for you is you got $1 million. Is it $1 million?
1 million.
1 million. I can't believe it. I was going through my Twitter feed the other day, and a lot of my friends in the European region, the Dutch region, Germany, things like that, people were like, why isn't anyone covering this WordProof mention of the $1 million prize or grant from partly the government and a blockchain startup, right? That's provided this money.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just the government, the European Commission.
Just the government. And I saw it in the Twitter feed, and I was like, yeah, why isn't anyone covering this in the US? But I mean, shortly thereafter, there was some coverage of it. And I don't know if there's just a disconnect of, it was the first time I had seen it, first time I had seen your product, in fact, and I was happy to sort of stumble upon it. And I was happy that you made the connection to chat with us on the show. You gave me a little bit of a brief for those who don't know, I'll say the brief that you gave me, and then you can dive in with anything else that you have. But Sebastiaan van der Lens has a big heart for open source. In 2006, he co-founded Amsterdam's first WordPress agency. Is it Van Ons? Is that how I say that?
Yeah, Van Ons. It's Van Ons. It's from us, but then in Dutch, as Dutch as could be.
Which is a leading digital agency now, serving over 100 million page views a year. In 2019, Sebastiaan founded WordProof, the winner of Europe's Blockchain for Social Good contest. In 2020, Sebastiaan has a strong passion for improving the playing field of publishing, SEO, and e-commerce solutions by his team are actively being used by over 100,000 organizations. Let's fix broken web together. And when I was going through your brief, and I swear to God, I'll let you talk pretty soon. When I was going through your brief, and you sent me all the material. You have the byline, you have headshots, you have press releases, you have videos that you sent me. It's like, man, I looked at your LinkedIn and I was like, this is really what looks to be your second tech company. I mean, pretty good to have all this stuff. I mean, I've talked to people who have had dozens of startups and they have not been this prepared. So good on you, sir.
Thanks. That's a great compliment.
I want to dive right in, and I want to talk about WordProof and what this is. So set the stage. What does WordProof do for the common user?
So for the common user, normally I do a lot of radio and television stuff. Then they ask, hey, what does it do for the consumer? We can dive into technicals today because we're with the WordPress community now. But what it does, or what I always trigger listeners to do on mainstream media is, hey, if you see a news website and there's a text says, last edited 2 hours ago, you could say, wow, that's transparent. But you could also say, hey, what was there 2 hours ago that I'm not allowed to see anymore? And WordProof is about that shift, about the verifiability of every content on the internet. What was there? Who sent it to us? It's kind of a layer of trust over the internet. 29% of Europeans, they are kind of suspicious of the internet, and 86% they say they have fallen for fake news at least once. And what we say is, hey, what I read is real, or we need a layer of trust, which creates that what I read is real and I can verify who wrote it. What I create is mine and I have the proof. And in disputes, I have leverage. I kind of have protection. WordPress users, they work with open source software, so they can check or verify all the software. Doesn't it send data to malicious parties, stuff like that? But what timestamping does, WordProof does timestamping with blockchain, is what we do is we create a hash of all content and we put that in a blockchain. So from that moment, you can verify and prove as a web shop or publisher that you didn't tamper with your data.
And, when I was looking at the site, I was looking at your pricing page. I was going through your demo. I watched you go through the demo. Then I went to your own site and actually clicked to make sure that you actually had it installed on your site, which in fact you did. It's, the first thing that came to mind, especially when I saw sort of like the third tier of pricing. I mean, it's roughly, I want to say, $150 a year. For maybe 200 posts a month. Is that roughly the price of what it translates to a year?
Yeah, it's yeah.
And what I really thought was, boy, this is just like, almost like you buy an SSL certificate if you're not using Let's Encrypt, let's say, but you buy an SSL certificate. There's some for like $9, but I think most consumers might be like $100 is good for me. I feel like I'm securing my site. This sort of feels the same way, where it's like, well, you get an SSL certificate. and now you get wordproof, right? It's almost like securing the site kind of deal, and the price isn't super expensive. It doesn't even have to be that high if you're not making 200 posts or pages a month either. And
or the thing, it's not expensive, but I want it to be free. The thing is, a timestamp costs a bit of resource on a blockchain because there's no commercial company behind. So there's kind of, for example, in Bitcoin, if you transfer one Bitcoin from one person to another, you pay a little fee. And with timestamping, it's actually the same. The costs are really costs for putting that hash on chain. I want, ideally, timestamping to be free. That would be best for the internet.
That would be an amazing feat for you to accomplish. And when you click the timestamp, and I was going back, and you can actually see the stamp or the hash on blockchain, and you can actually see the CPU. I think it shows like the CPU cycles or something like that it cost to actually make that. One of my questions, and since you kind of just said it, one of my questions for you today was going to be about Bitcoin. And do you ever get people like confusing blockchain and Bitcoin? Because I would say 90% of my friends would probably be like, oh yeah, blockchain is Bitcoin, and vice versa. Like, do you ever get, that confusion, or people are like, is this like a Bitcoin thing? Am I making money with this? And they don't even understand like what blockchain technology is.
Of course, yeah, for sure. The thing is, and it's in a way, it's kind of hard because there's Bitcoin, there were initial coin offerings, ICOs, which gave the technology kind of a bad reputation in many forms, so that it made blockchain kind of scary. And in a way, the same as people from outside the WordPress space, they're kind of scared of open source, of kind of scared of WordPress. Oh, isn't it unsafe? Isn't it? There are objections that come with WordPress, and in that way, there are objections that come with blockchain or Bitcoin as well. In 1991, blockchain was invented for timestamping documents. So the reason why blockchain was invented was for timestamping documents or content. And then in 2008, 2009, there was the Bitcoin white paper. Bitcoin uses blockchain technology, but in the Bitcoin white paper, it references to the 1991 blockchain white paper explaining how timestamping works. So the two are, of course, related. And even more, you can timestamp with the Bitcoin blockchain as well. We, as WordProof, we say we don't mind on which blockchain you timestamp. The two are related, but blockchain was invented for timestamping originally.
Yeah. And I like it. I like the the user interface that you've overlaid, right? It's sort of so if you go back and you look at that is a technical term, like, is it a hash mark? Is that what you call it, or just the hash?
Yeah, a hash, or we call it's a hash, and that hash is in a blockchain transaction, and that's what we call a timestamp.
So you have you can go back to the site to actually see it, and it links over to blocks.io, blocks.io, and it almost looks like you're looking at like a GitHub page. But when you're on the WordPress site, you have this nice little modal, this nice little overlay, and people can see these revisions as well, right? If they have the revisions active, they can kind of see what you've changed, when you've changed it, and you've sort of made it easier to use in that concept, right? It's not super technical when somebody's just looking at it. They can visually see this is legitimate content. It's been changed. How does that come about? Have you had other requests to see other things on that screen?
It depends. The next step would be identity. So, for example, in the blockchain space, there are a lot of people are working on open source way to work with identity. With, for example, universities who say, hey, this is Matt, and he had a certificate in science or in health, a master in health. By putting the certificate or your identity on a blockchain, what can happen then is that you can see, as a consumer, you can really verify if information input has an impact on your voting behavior or on your health. You want to check, does it really come from the politician? Does it really come from someone who has a master in health? So a request would be more the authorship, to connect it to a timestamp as well.
Yeah, that was actually you're taking all the questions
Sorry,
right off of my
sorry.
sheet. That was actually where I was going to go next, because that was the first thing that popped in my head. I was like, wow, this is awesome. Number one, it's simple, super simple
Yeah.
for you to get started with it. And I was like, wow, this is great. But what happens, if you wanted to verify the author? Because, in the world of fake news, if a writer or an author, writes for one publication, it's time stamped over there. They're using WordProof, and they move to another, publisher, and now they're writing articles over there. How does one verify that author? And you've kind of already alluded to it. Is that a technical roadblock in blockchain authentication, or is that something that's just you haven't built yet for WordProof? Like, is that something that you're going to solve, or somebody else has to help you out with that?
There are more than 100 companies worldwide working on blockchain identity. That's on one hand. And on the other hand, there's kind of the thing is, identity on a blockchain may not have a business model. It's tricky. It's too tricky. It must be an open source movement. So there is a movement. It's under the hood of W3 Consortium, and it's about a self-sovereign identity. It's an open source way to describe identities. So, for example, in Europe, you have the ESSIF movement. It's the European Self-Sovereign Identity Movement. Then you have a technology, it's called verifiable credentials. It's all an open source way to define identity. And what you in first time, you always need some organization. It could be a government, but it could also be Twitter or LinkedIn or literally any organization who are providing the identities. The holy grail in the end will be a fully open source form of unique human identity, but that's not where the technology is at currently. The first step will be, hey, connect your LinkedIn to it, connect your Twitter to it.
Right. Because I guess what happens, the challenge. Well, from the surface, a business model for identity could be as easy as some corporation saying, for $100 a year, you can have this identity, like a driver's license or a government issued identity. For $99 a year, you could have this identity backed by the blockchain or hash or marked on the blockchain, and this is you. The problem with that is that's one company charging
and
you
need to trust that company.
Exactly. Right.
And that's a problem.
And that is the problem. So yeah, definitely a deep dive, issue there. I mean,
I can describe in 1 minute, if you think it's valuable, what the true identity can look like. It's dangerous and we don't do it, but this is how it would work. If you have a face with a 3D camera, it's kind of your face is kind of a private key. It's really unique, 1 in a million unique. So that's why, for example, on Apple with the face cam, you can do a login to your phone. It's a 1 in a million chance that it's you. If you have so that's a 1 in a million identity. So maybe 7,000 people on this world are able to unlock your phone. It's a scary idea, but that's possible. If you combine that with social relationships, so for example, you and I are on a picture, I acknowledge that you are you, and you acknowledge that I am me, the combination of that 1 in a million private key from your face, combined with your social relationships over time, makes a unique identity.
Yes.
That can work. So there are prototypes of that, but I would never use a face or biometrics to build an identity because that has so much risk with it. But there are concepts to build identity in a totally open source way. But the safest way to start is just connected to a Twitter or LinkedIn, something like that.
And the type of customer, let's sort of start to transition into your business model with WordProof. Your ideal customer, I mean, obviously everyone, like we want everyone to use this, right? But in order to make the business grow right now? Are you targeting publishers, advertisers? Like, what's your ideal customer right now that you're actively pursuing or marketing to?
So there are three core benefits of the product. One could be a way to claim copyright, stuff like that. That's interesting, and we have users, for example, from the creative space. They say, "Hey, we want to protect our work around plagiarism, stuff like that." So it could be creative companies. Then we have the solution to fake news and taking accountability. That could be publishers or also e-commerce who spend a lot of time creating content to sell their products. And another interesting benefit is there are some problems in search engines. For example, if you just change the date of an article, you rank higher for a few days. In that way, you could say there is a need for search engines to check if someone tampered with, for example, the date of an article. So there might be search engine benefits as well. And that's one of the reasons why we output the timestamp, which is created in an open source way, to schema.org as well. We worked on it with the people at Yoast to make a uniform way, a universal way to put the timestamps in schema.org as well. So what would be ideal customers? Publishers, we have the biggest publisher in the Netherlands, for example, but also big blogs. Everyone who cares about search engine optimization and has a lot of content, that are the people we're looking at currently.
Do you have other platforms that bigger publishers are looking at going, you know what, we don't use this WordPress thing. We don't want to use this WordPress thing for whatever reason. Can this integrate with other CMSs, or is that like way down the road, future plans kind of thing?
No, the thing is, we won the 1 million, and part of the plan for the 1 million is to roll out to other platforms. I recently wrote a blog about how WordPress market share is growing to 50% in the coming years. That's Yoast's vision, that's my vision, that's Matt's vision. So
it's my vision too. Let me in on the vision.
Yeah. So we're all, everyone who's following WordPress closely knows that the 50% in the coming years is inevitable. So it makes sense. And my background is in WordPress for over 15 years. So it was a logical place to start. A next step might be, or we have people from the Drupal community reaching out to us to ask us if they can bring it to Drupal. Yes, of course, we'd love to. I can imagine that we roll out to Shopify as it's fastly growing, and there are some use cases for e-commerce as well. So, and there's an API. So if someone is listening now and says, hey, I don't have WordPress and I want to integrate, of course, there's an API. You can have the certificates on your website. It's all possible, but there will be more platforms where we will roll out to.
I have to ask, I don't know, like, does Gutenberg get in the way at all of content and the way that you do revisioning or comparative revisioning on that modal that pops up on a site, or is that not even an issue at all? Gutenberg, or page builders in general? Like, do you have any concerns with like the technology that people are using to build sites?
Let's first start with Gutenberg. Gutenberg makes that the output of content, for example, to search engines, is so much better than it ever was. So Gutenberg is really a blessing for, I think, the internet at least, but also for WordProof. It makes helping search engines or with structuring all data on the site, and the timestamp is just a simple part of the data on your site. It helps to output it in the best way possible to make it digestible for search engines. So in that way, Gutenberg is of course good for the internet, but it's more accelerating than stopping us. The thing with page builders is if they use a lot of shortcodes and stuff like that, it makes the inputs kind of ugly in the certificate. So we can filter it out and clean it up, but it makes often the output of page builders is ugly HTML. So that might, in many cases, result in an ugly scroller through the revisions as well.
Is there a use case for WordProof sort of I don't even know if this is possible, but is there a way to sort of timestamp the structure of a page, right? Maybe somebody changed a 2-column blog into a 4-column blog, and maybe we're timestamping that and tracking that, maybe for maybe malicious activity, or maybe somebody
That
messed
could
up
be.
a layout.
That could be, but a very interesting next step would be, you have seen, maybe you can put a link in the show notes, the thing where you can scroll through the revisions of
Mm-hmm.
content. What I'd love to see is more publishers who implement a way to scroll for the visitor outside our model, just in the interface, to scroll through the revisions of content.
Right.
So that's one of the things I'd love to add to WordProof, just a block which allows the visitor to scroll through different revisions.
Yeah,
And therefore
and
timestamps.
I'm assuming that's sort of, I don't know, what I'll call the secret sauce to WordProof, right? Because, when you look at blocks.io, you just see this transaction of the blockchain. I couldn't find actual content, revisions. I'm sure that's what the WordProof secret sauce is, right? You're storing the revision content. You might be storing unique things to the WordPress side of the house, while that blockchain transactions happening on blocks.io or whatever, right? That's
No.
part of the.
No, the thing is, it's really, so there are two options. When you set up the plugin, you can do two things. You can let the WordProof service timestamp automatically on your behalf, or you can do it with a blockchain wallet right from your desktop computer or mobile phone. So there's no secret sauce of WordProof doing some magic with your content, because that would make it closed source or proprietary and unverifiable by the outside world. So there's no trust in WordProof needed at all for timestamping.
Got it.
And the thing is, WordPress does a lot with revisions. So, but in some cases, the revisions are not on the WordPress side. So what we will, and that's part of the business model, is we can store your revisions. For example, for Shopify or also on WordPress, if you want us to store them for you, that's possible. That makes it easier for us in the case of the plagiarism tool to archive and to automatically create legal letters when someone is doing a copyright infringement with you. But it's not mandatory, and I try to emphasize there's no secret sauce that you truly need WordProof. We're just a user-friendly tool to timestamp, but there's no trust needed in WordProof to make this work.
Gotcha. But you can store, maybe not now, but eventually you'll be able to store revisions. I just know like some web hosts disable, or not disable, but they limit amounts of revisions so that there's not this massive database load or whatever. If somebody had revisions off, would you be able to store all revisions, or do they need to have?
Absolutely. Yeah. And for some features, we need to store the revisions. For example, with the creating legal letters, but it's not mandatory, and it's still valuable if we don't.
Gotcha.
For the user.
So I love the concept of pitching, of the buzz around startup events. I'm a mentor in a local accelerator, and we do two. Yeah, it's fun. It's super exciting, and it's a small accelerator. It's just for sustainable businesses on the south coast of Massachusetts, and I love the pitch events. Well, when we had the pitch events in person, not over this COVID stuff. But walk me through this process. You pitch with 175 other participants from all over Europe. You win the $1 million euros. What was that like? Was this your first sort of, pitch contest, talking to judges, talking about the concept and to earn money? How did you prepare for it? Give me the whole rundown.
Yeah. So, there was a competition, and it was called Blockchains for Social Good. And you had to write a exactly 30-page proposal covering the social good, what it does for inclusivity, what it does for a sustainable world, what it does for a European added value. And we wrote a proposal. We invested around with our team 1,000 hours in writing the best possible proposal. So it was kind of a bet your company decision, because
Yeah.
if we had put all those time in all those hours in development or sales or whatever, we would have been at a better position there, for example. So, but we thought, okay, if we win this, we have Europe as a partner, and we have the credibility and some funding to to roll out the whole timestamp ecosystem as we prepare it in our document. So we thought, okay, let's bet the company. We will do we will participate in this competition, because we thought, okay, if there's one blockchains for social good initiative, I think WordProof makes a good chance. And the good thing is, I work with WordPress for over 14 years. One of my co-founders worked with WordPress for over 10 years. So we are really, our DNA is open source. One of my previous projects was a GDPR plugin with 1.3 million downloads and 100K users. So we have a track record in open source. So, and open source was one of the important elements. Now, we wrote a proposal. A few months later, we heard, okay, you're part of the 23 finalists. So come to Brussels. That's where the headquarters of the European Commission is. That's what we did in February. And a few weeks back, we heard, hey, you did not only you're not only part of the last 5, but you're the absolute winner. You have 29.5 out of 30 points. That's the highest the company ever had in this kind of competition.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you didn't have to do like get on stage. It wasn't like a TechCrunch.
That was with the last 23. So in Brussels in February, we had the 23 finalists, and we did a 3-minute pitch, and we did a hearing, really official, with 8 judges. We were in a room and doing a hearing. So it was really official, everything, behind the closed doors. And it worked out.
How was that to you? Like, how did you mentally prepare for it? I know, like, you're down to 23 finalists. It's $1 million, euros on the line. What was it? What was going through your head when you were making that pitch?
Oh,
were you
man,
nervous at all?
We were so nervous. And for example, my boyfriend, this year was crazy for me. I was about to marry in this year's September, or the plan was to marry in September. We postponed that because of COVID, obvious reasons. But then we heard that we won this competition, so that was nice. All the people around me, they know my pitch. They had the 3-minute pitch, but if I was practicing it and I was stopping my sentence halfway, everyone around me was able to finish that pitch.
Yeah.
Because so we practiced maybe the pitch for 20 or 30 hours, just every day, in the morning, in the lunch, in the evening, practicing. Okay, this detail, this word, we need to tweak a bit. But that worked. The jury session behind the closed doors was one of the most awkward and nerve-breaking meetings I ever had. We were there with the 3, and we didn't know what to expect there. So we were totally nervous, but it was kind of it was
So paint that picture for us. You did your 3-minute pitch, and then they brought you sort of behind the scenes to interview
nobody knew,
a little bit more.
Nobody knew what to expect. So there were 8 people sitting there. I think they got the briefing to don't show any emotions, and we were not allowed to bring in new information. So we were it was kind of a due diligence session.
Yeah.
But they asked questions, and
3 minutes is not a lot of time.
No, that was 20 minutes. The pitch was 3 minutes, and the demo was 2 minutes, and then we had a 20-minute session with the judges.
Wow. When you first did your first pitch, how long was your first pitch? Like when you practiced it at home before going there, was it like 20 minutes?
It was 5 minutes or something like that. And I was actually we were in a fight. Okay, I wanted to keep it long and tell everything, and they were more no, shorter. It must be 2 minutes, and then you can talk slowly, and maybe you have 3. So, but there were 5 items or all 6 topics. We had to cover all of them. So, it was really hard to cover 6 topics in 3 minutes.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And the thing is, when we walked out of the jury room, my co-founders and I were kind of in a fight because I said, "Hey, it's in the pockets, right?" We had two of the three judges. They were asking questions, and the questions had the assumption that we won it. And they said, "No, Sebastian, forget about it. We totally fucked up. We're sorry for using the word,
That's
but
right.
it's yeah, forget about it. It was the worst thing we ever did. So yeah, let's move on with our
Why did they
lives."
feel? Why did they feel that way? They feel like you guys weren't answering the questions correctly, or you just were just so nervous that that's what it felt like?
The thing was, the setting was really uncomfortable, so uneasy. It was really, yeah, the atmosphere wasn't so. Yeah, it was so professional, and it was really like being in court. So they say,
Gotcha.
yeah, there was no enthusiasm, there was no nothing. So yeah, sorry, Sebastian, we lost. But the thing is, all the other 22, because before the hearings we didn't talk too much with each other. You're kind of in competition with each other. But after, everyone was talking to each other, and everyone had that same uncomfortable feeling. That was just how it was set up. So yeah, I said, hey, don't yeah, don't misplace. It's the fact that it was uncomfortable doesn't mean that it's that we did a bad job. And I totally agree that we could have done better in being more sharp in answering, but I was happy at that time.
Yeah. And how did you find out? Did they, like, when you left the room and you walked out the doors, there was like balloons and confetti, and you
No,
they were
no,
like,
no,
actually,
no, no, no.
you won.
It took us. They promised that they will that the outcome would be communicated in March, but then COVID started. So I just
Right.
got a phone call from the Dutch government 2.5 weeks ago. And the thing is,
It's
we
like, hey,
actually
$1 million just showed up in my account. I don't know.
yeah. It's going something like that. Or the fun thing is, we were pressing F5 refresh every day on the Europe's website, on the website of the European Commission. So even
Sure.
there, if it would have been timestamped, we were easier able to track the updates
Yeah.
on the European Commission website.
That's
So
awesome. It's like you need my product. Like,
yeah. And actually, and the nice thing is, sorry to all listeners for GDPR, because that's invented in Europe, of course.
Yep.
Now we are talking with the people who created GDPR. So I think we can bring some goodness from the open source ecosystem to do it better and nicer than GDPR. I promise you that I'll fight for that.
That's that's awesome. His name is Sebastiaan van der Lens of WordProof. You can get WordProof at wordproof.io. That's wordproof.io. Sebastian, where else can folks say thanks for doing the show?
Of course, on Twitter. So that's wordproof.io as a handle. My personal handle is DALANS, Delans, and wordproof.io. That's the website. And of course, there's a free plan too. So, and we would love to hear all your feedback and suggestions.
Yep. 10 timestamps a month for free. Go to wordproof.io. Everybody else, it's mattreport.com, mattreport.com/subscribe to join the mailing list. Don't forget to leave us